Are you ready for another week of the NFL Power Ranking Show presented by Energizer? Happy holidays to you and yours from our studios in Los Angeles. My name is Andrew Siciliano, the man on the other side of the screen, the man who makes the power rankings. You can see him, by the way. Just scan the QR code right there. Happy holidays to Eric at home. And you know it's happy, Eric, when you have 4 of the top 7 and 5 of the top 9 losing. Your life must be miserable.
It is. I guess it made it easier. I didn't move anyone down or up because I didn't know what to do with any of these teams. Are they for real? Are they contenders? What are they? We'll have to find out, I guess.
Oh, man, I don't know. NFL.com/power rankings, or again, scan the QR code where for the second consecutive week, you're going to see the 49ers here as the number 1 team. They punched the Eagles in the mouth. They then came back home, had a little bit of a challenge early from the Seahawks, but they are the number 1. And then you have the Ravens at number 2, who needed overtime to beat the Rams, but they are just fine. And then it kind of gets interesting. You got the Cowboys at 3, the Eagles at 4. That game was over in 5 minutes against Philadelphia on Sunday night. The Dolphins, everyone's hurting. They lost at home to the Titans, but they don't move. I mean, there's a dilemma because what do you do? Because the Chiefs lost, and they're still complaining, and they're at 6. And then the Lions lost, like they should have lost to the Bears last time, and they're at 7. And then the fighting Joe Flacco's move up to 8. I mean, where do we begin, Eric? Other than saying, I think clearly the 49ers are 1, and then it's kind of just throw it against the wall.
Yeah, the group of halves right now feels like 1 or maybe a very small group of teams, and the 49ers are definitely charter members of that right now. I mean, forget the 3-game losing streak. They've been great. They were great before it. Everything seems to be clicking. The interesting thing about Sunday, Andrew, is that it really wasn't consistent. They didn't get any offensive flow till late, but when you have Deebo Samuel and Christian McCaffrey and Brandon Ayuk and George Kittle ripping off big plays the way they did, they got more than half their yards Sunday on 8 plays. So it's a little bit hot and cold, but they find a way, and they get pretty good health on defense. They were worried about Charvarius Ward, Hargrave. Both those guys seem to like they're okay long term. So the winners keep on winning.
And they get Arizona this week. That game is in Arizona. Then the Christmas night home game against the Ravens. But the 49ers are the 1 seed in the NFC, and they have the head-to-head, which is the most important thing, against both the Cowboys and the Eagles. They stomped on both of those teams, so they have a clear path to number 1, with San Francisco still number 1 in our power rankings. The Ravens are number 2. They needed overtime. I mean, again, they've had some battles at home. They weren't able to win that game against the Browns a couple of weeks ago. That was a huge game at home. This one kind of felt the same. But this one, Eric, they pulled out, and with the Dolphins losing, get to them in a second, I mean, Baltimore's got that clear path to number 1.
Yeah, it seems pretty clear right now, at least the way the Dolphins play. Weren't able to put the Titans away, suffered a huge setback. So this is Baltimore's game. You're right, it did take some effort there, but a lot of good things did come out of this game, I think. Lamar Jackson in the downfield passing game, to OBJ, to Isaiah Likely, to Zay Flowers, who had the touchdown and the crucial 2-point conversion. They don't get that. They don't win the game because the Rams did kick a field goal to tie it right after that. So, also the huge special teams play in overtime, typical Ravens play. They find a guy, the 53rd man on the roster, if you will, goes and wins it for him. Defensively, a little bit of concern. Kyle Hamilton gets banged up. It sounds like they avoided a major injury with him, though. So, and look, Marlon Humphrey back, struggled a little bit in this game. But to me, Andrew, if you remember his first game back after missing the first 4 contests of the season, he struggled, but then was good after that. So I assume this is just an acclimation period.
The schedule, though, for the Ravens is brutal.
Oh, yeah.
They're in Jacksonville on Sunday night, although the Jaguars aren't any good at home. They're 2-4 at home. Then they have to go to San Francisco, as mentioned, on Christmas night. Then Miami. That game is, in essence, Week 17 for the number 1 overall seed. And then the Steelers at home, Week 18. Who knows what the Steelers are fighting for, but the Ravens will likely have to win that game to hold on to number 1. But they do have that clear path, and they stay at number 2. The Cowboys are up 1. They are number 3, and they are our team of the week, presented by Truist. They got a good win, Eric. Congratulations to the Dallas Cowboys for getting a good win, a really, really good win. And if they had not been stomped by the 49ers in Santa Clara, a month ago, 6 weeks ago, whatever that was, on that Sunday night. I guess you kind of might make an argument they have a claim at number one.
Right. I mean, that game is probably the difference right there. Arizona losing to them earlier in the season too, but still, I think you look at the momentum they've made and the progress they've had since, really the last 2 months or so. And since that San Francisco game, Dak Prescott's been terrific. I don't know that the other night was his finest performance, but outplayed Jalen Hurts, had everything going in the first half. And how about a little clap for Mike McCarthy, for a guy who was on the operating table days before the game.
Well done.
Showed a lot of life. Play calling, got a TD reversed, and made a tough call on a couple long field goals that worked out. So he was flipping aces all night. The first half was brilliant, and it was a statement performance overall by Dallas.
And Dak is looking at an MVP here potentially. He is playing lights out. They're working everyone into the offense. Tony Pollard, Rico Dowdle was able to come back from injury. He showed great burst here as well. And you spoke of the appendix injury. Did you see they had Matt Waletzko, the offensive lineman, standing near McCarthy the entire game? Honestly, he was there to protect McCarthy. If there was any sideline shrapnel coming at the coach where he would have to get out of the way only a couple of days off the operating table, Matt Waletzko was there to block for him.
Hey, we'll do that down at the Senior Bowl. I'll be your protection when you roam around on the sidelines.
Right.
Deal?
Because that's what I need, obviously. I have to roll with security. I'm going to be in Alabama, so I need those 2 state troopers a la Nick Saban whenever I walk out onto the field with the big wide brim hats. Yeah. No.
I approve.
Let's do that. Cowboys in Buffalo this Sunday. By the way, it's going to be cold, maybe in the high 30s. So we'll see how the Cowboys deal with that. After beating the Eagles, who are now down 1, let's talk about them. They are now number 4 in your power rankings, and they could have some weather as well. They have to go to Seattle, cold, rainy, Monday night here. This is just another trip, another stop on a gauntlet of a schedule. But the Eagles have been beaten badly by the Niners, beaten badly by the Cowboys in consecutive weeks.
Right. There's no shame in losing to these top 5 type teams or top 10 teams, right? But it's the way they lost. And speaking of cold, I mean, that defense has gone through the ringer recently, and 10 straight possessions between, the San Francisco game and what we saw Sunday night, where they allowed a touchdown, a score, and 9 of them were touchdowns. Now, the scoop and score did get them back in the game, and you felt like with Jalen Hurts and those guys, you have a chance, but Hurts, Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, the big 3, all of them put a fumble on the ground. Dallas recovered all 3, And where's DeAndre Swift gone the last 2 games? It's kind of a curious one, too. I mean, he's been getting that 15 to 20 catches, really been a great spark for them, or 15 to 20 touches. But the last 2, he's only had 19 total. So we're kind of curious about his usage and what they see going forward.
Eagles, it's not that they lost. You make a great point. It is how they lost, and there are people panicking in Philadelphia. I don't think that's an exaggeration because they go, oh, well, we got 10 wins. But, the teams you've lost to are the teams you're going to have to beat to get to Vegas, and those teams have beaten you badly. All right, speaking of getting beaten, and they didn't get beaten badly, but it was a bad loss. The Dolphins, you don't have moving. They're at 5, and partly because everyone else in the top 8 or 9 lost. But I don't know how you reconcile this here. Eric, Tyreek Hill should have won the MVP on Monday night because without him, they're nothing. The offensive line's banged up. You got key pieces on defense out. What do you make of the Dolphins now?
Yeah, before I was forced to kind of rewrite my comment for this week's power rankings late in the game, with about 3 minutes left, I felt pretty good about what I wrote. I said exactly what you did. I said Hill's capstone for his MVP case this year should be the tape with him on the field and the tape without. Now, I mean, it's just a stark difference. And you could see the crowd and the team really get energized when he came back out there, but they couldn't punch it in early. They only got those 2 gift touchdowns because of defensive plays and special teams plays. So I'm really worried about this offense. And then the defense, which had carried them all night, had their early touchdown, the only offensive TD until the final 5 minutes. But look, it was just those last 2 drives where they got soft and they got passive, and Tennessee moved down the field with Will Levis. And suddenly, and you made a great point earlier this morning, we were talking offline, the number of injuries that have piled up, not just Hill came back, Connor Williams, the center, he's probably gone for an extended period. and then the defense getting wrecked as well. So
Yeah.
it's just they've been put through the meat ringer all of a sudden. Meat grinder, I should say, all of a sudden.
I've heard it both ways. Yeah. Jalen Phillips and Jerome Baker, both of them are out. Obviously, on the defensive side, Phillips isn't coming back. The offensive line is all banked up. Waddle left the game. Tyreek Hill obviously left the game, and they did not look the same. I thought it was interesting afterwards. Tua said, well, they're trying to put a top over our offense defensively. That's what the Titans are doing. I'm like, well, that's what you face every day. That's what Vic Fangio does in practice.
Yep.
You know, you kind of got to get used to it here. And the Dolphins have a tough schedule. They get the Ravens. They get the Bills week 18. Fascinating. All right, the Chiefs. Let's just get this out of the way right now. Kadarius Toney was offside. Full stop. End of conversation. The flag came out immediately. Amen. There were far more egregious, questionable calls, like a block in the back on the Tylan Wallace return. This was not one of them, guys. So quit your yapping. You have the Chiefs, Eric, at 6. They're not moving.
Yeah, another example of a team that lost, and I couldn't reward any of them by moving them up. There wasn't any really quality losses in that range, and, the Chiefs are among that group. I just felt like even though they were competitive in that game, so many missed opportunities, another disappointing script where they fall behind by 2 scores and expect a struggling offense to kind of bail them out of it. It's just not happening right now for Mahomes and company. Yes, that was a brilliant play they pulled off. Yes, had Kadarius Toney had his foot about 3/4 of a yard backward, they probably let it slide. But I'm sorry, those are the rules, and I thought it was a bad look that their frustration, talking about Andy Reid and Mahomes, boiled over. So they did come back to their credit and say, look, okay, I think I understand what the big picture is here, but deflecting on these kind of issues when really it's been a chronic problem, drop passes, missed connections on offense for some time now, and they've got to find a way to fix it. And that defense isn't carrying as much of the load as it was at one point in the season.
I think it was Schrager, maybe it was Kyle Monday on GMFB made the point. It seemed like there was a lot more coming out there from Mahomes. It wasn't just the officiating. It was like, I've been babysitting this offense for 3 months now. Can you guys get it together? Like, Dad can't do this forever, okay? You kids have to figure this out. It's not all Dad's fault. Like, you guys have to take care of yourselves here, right? Anyway, moving on. The Lions are at 7. Well. Yeah, the Lions are at 7. They don't move despite losing to the Bears and losing handily to the Bears. And then you have the fighting Joe Flacco's, the Cleveland Browns, who are up to 8. They're up from 10 to 8, but they lose Jed Wills and DeJuan Jones. I mean,
yeah. Having to work without your 2 offensive tackles is not easy, but Joe's giving him a lift, and I love how Browns fans have embraced the one-time enemy, the guy who beat him, 18 out of 21 starts in his career. All of a sudden, he's kind of the savior, even with a couple mistakes per game. You get it. He was parked on his couch a few weeks ago, but he's come in, added a layer of professionalism, added that downfield passing touch and just ability that they really didn't unlock much before. It wasn't a consistent part of their game, so getting his receivers involved, getting David Njoku involved, it's been a much different looking offense. And so, can they survive without these tackles? Well, they have so far, and, they benefit from other people's losses. They've moved up because of the defense and what Flacco's been able to bring.
Yeah, I mean, Kevin Stefanski is scheming up wide open touchdowns. Opening drive last 2 games, wide open touchdowns. The David Bell thing was just a coverage bust and a guy fell down. But the fact that David Bell was running untouched 50 yards for a touchdown, I mean, write that into your script.
4th and 3, too.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow. All right. We're just getting rolling through the top 8. How about the team that went into Kansas City and beat the Chiefs? Where are the Buffalo Bills? They're yet to be revealed, but we'll do that next on the Power Ranking Show presented by Energy. We've got games. Games on Saturday on NFL Network and NFL Plus. It's a Saturday showdown. Buckle up early. 10 a.m. NFL Game Day kickoff. Yours truly will be hosting here from the studio in Los Angeles. The Vikings, the Bengals, the Steelers, the Colts. All these games mean something. The nightcap in Detroit at Ford Field. The Broncos and the Lions. Yeah, it's going to be a full day of football Saturday right here on NFL Network and NFL Plus. Let's get back to the power rankings. They are presented by Energizer. Eric Edholm asks you to scan the QR code on the left or go to NFL.com to see the Jaguars down 1-9, followed by the Bills at 10, the Broncos at 11. They're a big mover, up 5. The Texans at 12, down 3. The Bengals also up 5. They're at 13. And then the Steelers the Colts, and the Green Bay Packers. All right, at home, the Buffalo Bills. We said it last week, just get them in. Find a way to get them in. That game in Kansas City, after the article late in the week about Sean McDermott by Ty Dunn, was a referendum on that staff and on that locker room and on that team. They voted across the board. Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, I mean, it was a rough week, no doubt about it, coming in. The Bills were already up against it in the football department. Then that story drops about something that happened 4 years ago. And then I'm not, I'm not saying it was good nor bad. I'm just saying that occurred. And then there was the Von Miller stuff still lingering. And, they went in and got off to an early lead and held on for dear life. But we've seen those MVP flashes from Josh Allen. We've seen the defense at least make some plays. And yeah, I mean, there's still plenty of work left, Andrew, but you've seen life in this team. And, in a upper middle class right now that feels like it's bereft of that challenger, that team that can rise up and go up against the 49ers and the Ravens of the world. The Bills are that team, in my opinion. They're not perfect. They have lots of warts, but they have the firepower on their best days to go toe-to-toe with teams like Philly and Kansas City. So they may be 11th in the AFC power rankings, but they're 10th in my overall power rankings, and that's reflective of what I think they can do down the stretch. But they still got to get in. Right now, they're not.
They are one of 6 teams in the AFC. 6 at 7-6. And they have the best quarterback situation of any of them, so just get them in. Another one of those teams, the Denver Broncos, who keep on winning and keep on moving up. Let's do future champions here, presented by FanDuel. Odds to win the AFC West. The Chiefs are still the prohibitive favorite, but the Broncos are now right on their heels. They're only one back in the win column. They are plus 900. And they have a huge game, as mentioned, on NFL Network Saturday evening in Detroit. Eric, if they win that one, I mean, look out. Vance Joseph, assistant coach of the year.
After people in Denver were calling for him to be fired this season, simply put, the most incredible in-season turnaround of any unit. We saw the evidence, and not just the Miami game, right? It was other games prior to that and even after where you thought, I don't think this defense has a chance to be middle of the pack, right? But they've now entered into arguably a top 10 or 12 group. They're playing like a top 5 group, at least they did on Sunday. Justin Herbert knocked out of the game. Probably their best all-around defensive performance, really clamped down. They took apart a Chargers offensive line that was, at least entering the season, one of their strengths. So, yeah, this was a complete performance defensively. Offensively, the early turnover kind of set them back, and there's still a lack of firepower. But when you've got Russell Wilson throwing to Cortland Sutton, it ends up at some point, inevitably, in a touchdown. They've been great this year, 10 hookups in the end zone. So, they've got a formula that seems to be working, even with moving parts and different things they have to navigate. And like you said, one game back of the Chiefs. What kind of odds would you have gotten at 0-4? Unbelievable.
Yeah, utterly ridiculous here. You mentioned Cortland Sutton. He has those 10 touchdowns. They've been in 10 different games. He has one touchdown, an individual touchdown, in 10 different games. So he has meant that much week in, week out. It's not like a guy who scored 4 times in one game and then has kind of been throwing him out there. No, 10 touchdowns in 10 games. Another one of those 7-6 teams. I'm not ready to count the Texans out yet. They are still 12, but they dropped 3 spots. They're dealing with now C.J. Stroud and concussion protocol. No Dalton Schultz, no Tank Dell last week. Man, they ran into a buzzsaw in Zach Wilson and the rain in New York.
Yeah, it looked like Nico Collins, okay, he's going to step up and be the number one, and he goes over 1,000 yards in the game and then gets hurt too. So you're losing Dell and Collins and Schultz. There was only so many options that Stroud had to throw to, but it was also his worst game. He missed some throws too. So prior to the concussion, you could say, look, the Jets got in his head a little bit, made it tough on him, and all of a sudden, this feel-good story, it's almost like they're getting ready to be graduated into off-season darling story, because right now, after this loss, it feels like they're up against it. They had no answers defensively for Zach Wilson, who we didn't even think might start this weekend, given the hesitancy there. So, other than the fumble, I mean, it was a tough night on that side of the ball, and they have a lot of soul searching and a lot of healing to do in the next few days.
Look, they're not out of it. They go to Tennessee.
Right.
The Titans won Monday night, right? But it's a short week. They got to come back home. They're not exactly world beaters. They're feeling good about themselves, but Houston can still very much get in this. They are only the 8th seed. They're only, one spot out right now of making the
Yep.
postseason. Let's make some power moves. They are presented by Energizer. Yep, they did it again. Jake Browning and the Bengals did it again. This time they beat the Colts, and they are up 5 spots this week to 13. They're up 7 spots in 2 weeks.
Yeah, the pride of Folsom, right? I mean, he's come in and with almost no expectations. Remember all the consternation about who Burrow's backup would be in August? Well, Jake Browning's it, and right now he's the starter, and he's playing like the 5-star recruit he was in high school. You know, the player that a lot of people felt was destined for NFL stardom at that age. Well, it's finally come at age 27 for him, so you can't be happier for him. I mean, they're running his offense, maybe not as much the Joe Burrow offense, that is, not as much of the shotgun stuff and everything Burrow does, but it's pretty close, and he's done a good job. He found 9 different receivers. They got the screen game going. That was a huge part of the win. And, you know, this isn't somebody who's just forcing the ball to T. Higgins and Jamar Chase and keeping his fingers crossed. No, he looks confident delivering the ball, and they pretty much demolished the Colts outside of that one turnover late in the second quarter. You know, from start to finish, they pretty much controlled that game.
Yep, Chase Brown's getting into it now. How about him? How about
Yeah.
that rookie there? He has been electric. Had the long touchdown where he was the second fastest ball carrier this year behind Tyreek Hill. I'm sorry, behind DK Metcalf. I mean, that is ridiculous. And they have the edge this week, certainly, as they are at home yet again, and the Vikings were late in Vegas, and then they got to fly on Friday. So that is coming up Saturday on NFL Network. Coming up next, however, on the Power Ranking Show here, presented by Energizer, we haven't revealed yet the NFC South champion. We're leader. We have to. And plus the Rams. Where are they? Stick around. Week 15 NFL Power Rankings presented by Energizer. The Vikings don't move. They're at 17. The Buccaneers are up 5 to 18 after beating the Falcons, followed by the Seahawks, the Rams. Atlanta's at 21. New Orleans 22. The Bears, and then the Titans at 23. And at 24, the Buccaneers now go to Lambeau Field. Eric, we are contractually obligated to talk about the NFC South. Their highest team is 18.
And 18 was a stretch. I mean, I moved them up 5 spots. Now, that's a lot for a pretty narrow victory against another mediocre team in Atlanta. But like you said, someone's going to win that division. You know, the Falcons kind of shot themselves in the foot, but give credit to the Bucs. Baker Mayfield was gritty. Beautiful touchdown pass to Otten to win it. I mean, they battled in this game. They got the 2-score lead and kind of played from ahead and then had to come back. You know, it's never pretty with them, and they got away with a possible fumble there late with Rashad White, but White was better in the second half. You know, it's just one of those things. It's hard to find a ton of positives, but the defense did make a couple of plays that kind of set the tone early. They give up yards, but they find a way to make just enough plays to kind of keep them in games.
Hey, the positive is the winner of that division is going to host a playoff game, maybe even against the Cowboys. All right, the Rams lost in Baltimore. They lost in overtime in the rain, but they don't move. You have them at number 20. They are still very much in the playoff race here, even though they are 6-7.
Thought about moving them up, too, just like I thought about moving the Vikings down after their win. I mean, it's all subjective, I guess. But, yeah, kind of an old-school game from Stafford. He was out there slinging it. Cooper Kupp had his first big game in a while. Nakua, that amazing sliding grab. I mean, there were so many elements for a victory here. Kyron Williams, great again. But defense giving up those kind of unfettered big plays down the field, those coverage busts just can't happen, right? And so, yeah, Nakua great, defense not so good. Yeah, I'd like to see him tighten the screws a little bit on that side of the ball, but boy, Sean McVay has shown everybody he knows how to coach and scheme against good defenses, and he did it Sunday, and they were just a little bit short.
Absolutely. We're a little bit short on time. Let's get the last full screen here and go 25 down. Full screen TV term. The Jets are up 2. They're 25. Then the Chargers, Herbert's out for the year. The Giants, Danny DeVito, Tommy DeVito, they're both magic. Then the Raiders, the Cardinals, the Patriots, the Commanders, and the Carolina Panthers. Eric, you have 15 seconds. Pick a team. Say something nice.
I'm going to say something nice about my hometown team. The Chicago Bears, 3 out of 4 wins, look great, finished off Detroit, what they couldn't do before. Hat tip to them. Eberflus, Poles, Fields, all 3 did themselves very well this week.
They are number 23, and they face the Browns this week in Cleveland. For Eric Edholm, my name is Andrew Siciliano. This is always, we're going to figure it out as we go. But you know what? I think we had fun. So long, everybody.